Dear viewers, welcome to our today's format visit. I would like to thank you very much for all the letters that reached me again. The clientele of people who are now following the Visit show with great interest is certainly a very well-informed one. And yet there are many people who only get to know one or the other. I have chosen an email from Suzanne. Suzanne is 52 years old and writes, "How do you actually fast correctly? And is fasting, for example, a valuable situation for migraine headaches, or can I do it?" And I would like to tell you again about my experience with fasting. Fasting is not new at all. So already Hippocrates and Socrates have always meant that if you want to sharpen your body and mind, you should also fast. This has been the case for centuries, also for political reasons. Mahatma Gandhi fasted for a long time. Hildegard von Bingen supported fasting very much to simply maintain health, but also to find the way back to health. This also means fasting. And nowadays there are of course a number of peoples like the Muslims who fast from sunrise to sunset during Ramadan to give the body a certain relief. These are rituals according to their own life traditions, which we live very little in Western European countries. And yet it is good to stop once, and yet it is good to take care of relief. And from my own experience, from my own personal experience, but also through many, many people, I know what I'm talking about today. Because it's about a process that doesn't just involve not eating for a few days in a hurry. It's not about starvation at all, but it's about relieving the body and the mind and the soul and letting them come to rest. That means fasting is not a process where I don't eat anything, but a process where I embark on a journey to myself and where I feel that the moment I take the burden off my body, and that's what he does in fasting, he will never touch anything that is sacred and expensive to him, but he frees himself within a fasting process from too much burden. And we always talk about slag and metabolism slag, and I never really understood what it was supposed to be. But when you are trained as a biological doctor, the first thing you learn is the teaching of Pischinger. Pischinger lived from 1989 to 1982, and he left us a great wealth, namely the knowledge of the extracellular matrix. That is the great intercellular space. And this intercellular space is actually the transit route for everything, for all information and substance exchange. That means how my heart is doing, how my brain is doing, whether my liver guarantees me a high and good metabolism, how my kidneys are doing, my prostate, and so on, depends on the intactness and unburdenedness of this transit route. Through this transit route, everything goes, every nerve, every vessel, every lymph vessel, every collagen fiber, every capillary, every vein, every artery, everything goes through this transit route. And you have to imagine it like a huge, big highway. And if the flow is always given, if everything can move together without any problems, then it is not a problem. But that is not how life goes. If we burden this connective tissue with toxins, which often represent the waste deposit, if the liver does not detox well, if the liver, the kidney, is not 100% prepared, if the kidney and the body are not in sync, and for this reason it chooses the connective tissue, then it leads to reduced neurotransmission. That means it influences the change of nerve substance. It also leads to disorders, for example, in the receptors, where the minerals and trace elements have to dock, the hormones, and the tissue is overwhelmed by metabolic end products. That means the body tends to have migraines, headaches, exhaustion, fatigue, back pain. You can easily touch the back with the so-called Kibele's fold. It's like a wave that you can give up. If the back and the entire connective tissue is overloaded, we call it baked. If the connective tissue is full, then there is a significant overburden. And of course, this also has to have an impact on the organism. There are many reasons for this overload. These are hyperacidities, gastric acid, carbonic acid, all of this is deposited in the connective tissue. This is our malnutrition, too much carbohydrates. Too much carbohydrates are converted into fat, according to the motto of the body creates for emergencies. These are environmental toxins, herbicides, pesticides, these are also metals, this is aluminum. Everything is transferred to the connective tissue. Now imagine an aquarium with a fish. Then we talk about water here. And they will certainly agree with me that the fish is doing so well, as long as we also make sure that we give it fresh water on a regular basis. This knowledge of the necessity that the body must and may have the chance to clean up is so interesting. This really clearing, this really disempowerment. If we carry out liver detoxification weeks in the clinic, then people are of course also put on a special diet. That means, now many things in life are not as they usually are. That means the body also feels the peace that comes in, it mobilizes, it wants to take advantage of the chance. We also stimulate these processes. It's incredible what people have to go through, how bad they are doing. And so it is also very often with fasting. The body now feels that this connective tissue is clearing. And that's why it's so important to go into a rest. And don't think, I don't eat for 4 days, I fast now, but I have to do go here. That won't work. Then afterwards you have the same again and the weight goes up. It's not just about weight. There is much more to fasting. And whenever you do, you are worried that the body can also fulfill this task that you expect from it now, while fasting. And that's why it's so important. You can fast by simply changing to very light alkaline food. Far from any protein, away from any excess carbohydrates, away from coffee. Simply give the body a chance to do a so-called basic fasting. There are many ways to fast. But you should do it, whether you do a pure juice fast or an FX Maya fast for yourself. These things are possible without question. But make sure that you take the body with you when fasting. Make sure you drink a lot, for detoxifying teas, Brennesol, birch leaf tea, for tea from milk thistle, taraxacum, dandelion tea. Regulate your lymphatic system. Go for a lymph massage. Get a nice colon hydrotherapy. Or prescribe yourself daily enemas. With coffee coal, with coffee, with a shot of lemon, with a little salt or just with warm water. These are all things that are incredibly valuable in such a fasting process. And it is very clear that the main ingredient is water. Because the water flushes, the water picks up and the water brings out. They say about 30 milliliters to 50 milliliters per kilogram to support this fasting process incredibly. From the third day, a very strong liver detoxification program is created. And that is sometimes not that easy. Then the mood drops, you have a little fasting crisis. That's not that easy. The motivation can be a little down. But then it's over. And then after these 3 days, a really big inner process begins, where you notice that sometimes you see much clearer. That you experience incredibly valuable, also spiritual processes. That you feel so free. That you feel so light. That you don't need anything. And yet have the energy to do things, to want to experience. That's an incredibly beautiful state. And you will see what the body is capable of at this time. How grateful he is for these things now, also in a process of deceleration. That's why I always find it very valuable if you can do it well at home. But then you should also be relieved of many tasks that life also expects of you at home. You have to decide for yourself. Sometimes it's much nicer to go to a fasting group to then fast and wander or fast and meditate. Or just do a butching a fast for 10 days and indulge yourself by nice massages, lymph drainage. I can't really appreciate the value of this fasting enough. And it's not just a non-eating. The body has so much incredible reserves and he is grateful to relieve himself of these things. And I think it's just in the context of migraines and headaches. They have a lot to do with a desolate liver metabolism, as far as I can judge it now. And we see wonderful results there, which essentially integrate into a process, which the body has to do, but after fasting it is able to do it again. And that's why it's not just about pushing the processes, but also about providing the cleaning command, which is responsible for doing this work. You have to support that. But you can't appreciate the inner process high enough, which is created for you. And in this time, when we are all being challenged by life, by hardly stopping and appreciating the moment, by constantly dealing with new things. I was just at the summer WEF, the counter-congress to the winter WEF, and I thought again. That we all have to learn to live this collective consciousness. And it's not about thinking about myself. It's not about thinking that I'm protecting myself. It's about making everyone aware that we are finding a way of life where we are all important to each other. I'm still very touched by the lectures about the 5G situation, which is not new to me at all, which I have deeply internalized. But how much we are getting more and more involved in these things as humanity, and think that we can't live without them. At some point, the whole thing may turn in a completely different direction. And that's so close to my heart, that at that moment, perhaps through such processes, we get another access to what our body is also expected to do today. And we come to the conclusion that we are judging things very superficially, and that we are not doing so well with symptomatic therapy today. And thank you for being interested. Thank you for being a very open clientele of people who carry on a message with it, and of course also observe the concern that we see in the context of the development of diseases. And it just needs from us, I wouldn't say sacrifice, it's not a sacrifice, but I want to do it for myself. And you can't even assess the benefit and the result of such a time high enough for what it means for your body. In this sense, I would like to thank you very much for your attention. In the end, I wanted to give you a little tip, just from the observation this week. The patient is in a state of a wrist fracture, which was then very well cared for with a plaster. And in her handbag she had a prescription for ibuprofen and pantazole. And of course it was the choice of the surgeons who said, if the patient is now experiencing pain at home, then she should know that she can get these things from the pharmacy. But my experience is that we can treat these processes much better in the context of bone healing and anti-inflammatory therapy in this healing process, by treating an inflammation on the one hand as a swelling and an enzyme therapy as an anti-inflammatory therapy. In Germany, this is called a Wobenzyme or a Fluke enzyme, or simply bromelain, the pineapple enzyme. You have to choose the dose quite high at the beginning, maybe 3/4 or even 3/5. But then, adjusted, you can go down to 3/4 after 2 to 3 days, then 3/3, adjust it to your feelings. Enzymes are compared to non-steroidal antirheumatics, i.e. diclofenac, and all these things in a study. And they have exactly the same approach, decongestant and anti-inflammatory. Of course, they always think of arnica in this process. And here it is very important to know your vitamin D after each fracture, which is really important. It is of course important that the bone healing takes place well here. I also like to add sulfur, MSM. And well, apart from the fact that it will take 6 weeks and that you are not so mobile with your plaster, but that this process is well kept in mind and that you do not completely rely on it alone, you can support this process wonderfully. In this sense, I wish you all a wonderful week. I am very much looking forward to the next and also the next program. If you like, please send your questions to Visite at QS24.TV. I am very happy, and I am also very happy that we will see each other again soon. In this sense, all the best.